All right, good morning. So, just got an interesting comment from Jamal Freedom in Wales, um, talking about the status of ghostDAO. So, backing is down, Casper price is down in dollar terms, circulation down as well, but pool TVL is up. Um, and the question is, who is seeing Casper fees as LP contributor to the pool? So, that's great, amazing questions and absolutely accurate observation. And then, besides that, the only question for today is perhaps also an observation. All of my nodes have more than seven Casper staked, and nominated commission has been set. Keys live for 5 days, have full validated status, but all yellow on map. Okay, so we get great questions. So let's first of all, I think attack the telemetry question, right? So just because your nodes are yellow could be due to the fact that maybe you are not selected for that specific era. So just one more time, what's happening to everybody. So we call this validated minimum count. So validated minimum count from previous Casper has been about 1,000. Now for this version of the Casper that has been deployed a couple of weeks ago, the minimum validated count has dropped to 69 validator nodes, meaning that let's assume we have 100 nodes, 100 validator nodes, of which the minimum validator count is just 69. It means that 31 validator nodes will not be active in any given era. So only 69 will be selected. Now, it's not that 69 will be selected based on who has the most Casper. So like only top 69 selected and the other 31 not selected. No, it doesn't work like this. Everybody has a chance to be selected for a given era. So everybody's rotating. The validator set is rotating. However, the probability of your node being selected as a validator for this specific era is directly proportional to your stake. So let's assume I have, again, 1,000 GMV, 1,000 ghosts, and General Freedom, we have one ghost. So in that case, your chance is 1,000 times less than mine to be selected. Right? You can still be selected though, but the probability is lower. Right? So that's how Polkadot was essentially battling the dilemma of distributed network of nodes versus like how much stake each node should have. So kind of both benefit, right? So you benefit if you have like a more distributed set of nodes, clearly, and you also benefit because your nodes may be selected, and you also benefit if your stake is larger. So like both are kind of making sense. Now, the reason why you yellow, maybe your nodes are not elected, therefore not selected as validators for that specific era. The team is working on this, so there are some updates in the works. The code is being optimized. So for now, just don't worry about it. Essentially, for now, like until the next patch, do not worry about this. And I know Saron has been worried about this, and some other members. So for now, just go with the flow. Once the patch is live, Pierre will announce that in Wales. Then if you still have issues with like being yellow on the map or rotating as opposed to being active, etc., then that's going to be an issue. But for now, the team is fixing stuff. Mostly what's been fixed is some slashing things, some optimization of gas fees to make sure that everything is more compressed and everything is more optimized. So it's like pretty much just code. What's the word? What's the best word? Like code cosmetics, right? If you like that, plus some other little things here and there. Good morning, Mr. Educate. So that's this. Now I'm sharing CoinMarketCap, so everything is down. Bitcoin is down to 64 grand. Ethereum at 1,800. Now the reason why that's important for us is because remember, the ghostDAO is now backed by Ethereum. It's backed by Wrapped Ethereum, but it's Wrapped Ethereum. Ethereum is the same thing from perspective of price discovery. So price action. So the ghostDAO is backed by therefore $1,800 per one ETH. Now, when the DAO has been launched, the quoted price at the time of the launch was $2,011.50. So now we are down about 10% from there. So therefore, RFE would be down 10%. So everything would be down 10% because everything is measured in wrapped ETH. Now, what is to be expected is if let's assume Ethereum drops down to $1,000. Then you should expect all the metrics that I'm going to share with you in a second. All the metrics to drop in half. Conversely, if Ethereum decides to go to $4,000, then all our metrics will also grow twice by a factor of 2. Now, they will grow by a factor of 2 or drop in dollar terms. Now, in Wrapped ETH terms, it all stays the same, right? So the RFV price limit for us is not $1. The RFV price limit for us is certain quantity of Ethereum tokens that would drop it to $1 in dollar terms at the time of the launch. So the price floor may actually drop below $1 if Ethereum drops below $2,000. Right? So essentially, the price floor is $1 contingent upon Ethereum stays at $2,000. If Ethereum drops down to $1,000, the price floor therefore drops down to 50 cents. If Ethereum drops down to $500, then the price floor drops to 25 cents. Right? Now, conversely, if Ethereum decides to go up to $4,000, then the price floor is $2. Right? Double that. Right? If Ethereum decides to go to $10,000, which is 5x, then the price floor will go from $1 to $5, right? So everything is measured in in Ethereum terms, and then on the UIs we have dollar terms, just to make it easier for users. But in reality, keep in mind that everything is measured in Ethereum. So please forward your questions about anything related to DAO, ghostDAO, while I am going to be responding to observations from JML Freedom, which are extremely accurate. So, let me pull up my Excel spreadsheet. So, which you're not going to see, but because that Excel spreadsheet is absolutely like mind blowing from perspective of too much information. All right, so we introduced an LP bond for the first LP bond, and obviously the first LP bond, we screwed it up a little bit. The community elected it. Let me share. So every single bond is being set by the community, right? So when you go to the governance proposals here, so it will take some time for the data to be loaded. I don't know why it's taking like longer than usual. So here, maybe because I'm streaming. So this was the latest proposal. Yeah, it's taking so much time now. It's crazy. So yeah, why is it not opening? Okay. Again, I'm probably streaming and probably mining at the same time, so it's not a good idea for my computer, for my machine. So here, the proposal in particular comprised of two functions, the create function and audit reserves function. Okay, so it's just two options here. So either Wrapped ETH or eCasper. Okay, now here, the capacity has been this, which is and that's still a pretty freaking big capacity. And the market has been this. Now the market one, that's the initial price. Now that initial price doesn't tell much. Like, what is that? 124,930. What is that? However, you can extrapolate that, and the UI does that. So it turns the market price back into the wrapped, well, actually in the dollar-backed price, essentially. Setting correctly. I was under the impression that maybe user interfaces were wrong. No, user interfaces were correct. There's a little bit of an issue there, but that issue is about plus minus 2% at the moment, as far as discrepancy. Maybe more. Well, the discrepancy is associated with market price versus the hard-coded price. So since we are looking at 1800, 1900, then it's about 5% difference, right? But that is being fixed. We had a discussion about a couple hours ago, and we're going to fix that. But the massive discrepancy, the reason why there was such a huge negative discount, because this data was wrong. So the proposer made up a wrong data. As far as the initial price and also the capacity. So capacity was significantly overdone. The capacity was supposed to be, let me pull up the sheet. The capacity, yeah, my computer is just slow overall. Yeah, I think it's just a combination of everything. So how about I stop something? How about I stop some streaming, stop some mining, because that is definitely slowing down my computer. 1 second, gentlemen and ladies. Okay. So the uh so the previous I was talking about capacity, right? Okay, 1 second. Mhm. So capacity was supposed to be about $1 million um, for that bond. However, it seems like the capacity was actually about 20x that. So the capacity was about 20 million. So you could have purchased the bond with $20 million worth of stuff, right? So, however, that was not the problem. It could become a problem if we had 20 million buyers, like $20 million worth of LP bonds buyers. But we didn't have it. We had about $1 million worth of buyers. So we didn't like that was a problem. That was a mistake. We all voted for that mistake. However, that didn't really realize into anything bad. Now, the price, initial price, was also a mistake. Instead of the market value of the LP bond, we use the RFV value of the LP bond. So those are super freaking confusing, especially since we are using the wrapped ETH backing. So, and that was the very first LP bond that has ever been introduced since we switched from DAI backing to wrapped ETH backing. So, apologize for that mistake. However, again, that was not a problem at the end because, yeah, there was like a huge period of negative discount. But once the discount switched into premium, like actual discount, then from premium to the discount, then there was no problem anymore. So, and everything was done correctly on the back end stuff. It's just the UI, like the initial pricing and the capacity were set up incorrectly. And again, they ended up not impacting anything at the end because the price then from premium turned into a discount, and then the capacity was still like not more than $1 million at the end. Now, how the capacity was calculated? The capacity was calculated specifically. You're probably not going to be able to see it, but the capacity was specifically calculated to make sure that we are expanding the market cap to market value ratios. Now, what the hell does it all mean? So the market cap is here. Once the prices update, you will see it. So it's about $2 million, right? Okay, cool. Now, the market value is the market value of the treasury. The market value of the treasury could be found here, 1.66, which is huge. So in essentially what happens is, while we can say, well, the market cap not backed by anything, it's just $2 million. Well, it's absolutely incorrect. It's an incorrect statement. The market cap of 2 million is backed by the market value of assets in the amount of $1.6 million. So as you can see, this is not necessarily a very big discrepancy. Like the discrepancy could have been a lot bigger. So currently, I need to calculate it. Like, I'm just like trying to go back to my spreadsheet. So at that point in time, when the bond was suggested, the discrepancy was about 1.3. Now the discrepancy is a little bit bigger, but it's still not huge. It's still not where we want it to be necessarily. So it makes sense for us to, as a group, to keep growing the ratio between total deposits and the market cap. And if you do that, then we'll be able to successfully counteract any negative dilution coming from the APY. Now, the APY is at 20,000%. It was set to be 20,000% about a week ago, and it was sustainable for 3 months. However, since yesterday's LP bond was purchased at a massive discount to the price. So the final discount was about 40% because the price started dropping because I'm assuming people started selling Casper on the DEX, dropping the price, getting the WETH, and then pulling both WETH and eCasper on the DEX. So they were able, so essentially they would swap from eCasper to Wrapped ETH, right? So again, I apologize, it takes like a little bit of time for my stuff to load. Let's just give it a second. I need to stop all the other activities. Okay. Yes. Do you guys hear me now? I hope you do. I hope I did not disappear. Because I think Scorpion, you're asking if you hear me or not. Do you guys hear me? Please report if you don't hear me. Okay, I'll refresh the stuff. Okay. Oh, okay. So so from here on, somebody yesterday essentially were swapping out of eCasper and into Wrapped ETH, obviously dropping the price for eCasper. And then from there, they would be pooling eCasper and Wrapped ETH to get the LP, and then that LP would then be contributed towards the bond, right? So that was the structure. Now, the real situation, the real mechanics should be different. So new users should be coming, new users who don't have any eCasper should be joining the platform, and they should be doing what? In order to get the LP, they actually do the opposite, right? So they would spend their WETH to buy eCasper, thus essentially initiating a buying pressure on the eCasper. And then you would pool Wrapped ETH and eCasper at a higher price. So that's good for the protocol, the market would grow. But we don't have that many users. So currently we have about 21 holders, which is nice. 21 holders of Casper. It's okay. It's pretty actually widespread, pretty uniform. Not good. Like this address here has 10%, for example. That address has 84%, but that is the staking address, I think, like a bond depository address. So that is like a protocol address. But these are users, right? So it's actually it's pretty okay, except for this one with 10%. Everybody else is okay, right? Like you have 6.7, 9 Casper, 11 Casper, 15 Casper, 17 Casper. So it's okay, right? So it's pretty distributed, but not enough. On the mainnet, of course, we will hopefully have more than 21 holders. If you only have 21 holders, that's a problem. Now, the reason why that's a problem is because 21 holders, therefore, who have Casper, what they can do is they can go to the stake. Let me reiterate one more time. You can go to the stake. You can unstake from Casper that you have into eCasper. Now, how'd you get Casper in the first place? Well, you got Casper from the bond. So you're not a new user anymore. Like, you've been a new user 2 weeks ago, but no longer you're a new user. Now you hold your Casper. You unwrap that, unstake that into eCasper. After you unstake it, then you go to the DEX. You sell that to get your Wrapped ETH, and then you contribute both. So that way, you're actually initiating a downward pressure, the selling pressure on the DEX, on the price. And that's not good. And that's exactly what happened. So the price did collapse. So before the LP bonds, let me tell you what the price has been. It's all recorded on my spreadsheet. That takes some time to load. This computer is really slow. So, okay. So the price of eGhost in DAI before this whole thing, before LP bond, was $388 in dollar terms. Now let's assume Ethereum didn't really move. So 388. Now the price is 314. Not good. After LP bonds, the price is actually supposed to be higher, maybe 500, etc. Okay, so that is something that happened. Now again, why did that happen? Because we don't have that many users. So if you guys are whales, if you guys council members, if you guys just ghosties, if you have communities that you would like to bring to the mainnet, it's time to bring them. Like I say this every single time. Every single time is the time. But the game theory here works way better when we have more users, as opposed to 3-4 users who have been active. I'm pretty sure on the LP bonds yesterday. Maybe 5 users have been active. And of course, they've been acting in their self-interest. They knew what to do. They didn't create the dilution of actions. And that's why we saw what we saw. Now, what happened to the backing? The backing, before yesterday, before LP bond, the backing was, let me tell you, it was about $292 per one eGhost. $292. Now, why the backing dropped, and dropped a lot. It dropped by a factor of 4. Now, this number has to be, it's not the right number. The real number is a little bit higher. We need to audit reserves because we got reserves to the protocol. Now, we're going to be able to audit reserves with the governance, through the governance. Now, the governance, though, is becoming more challenging because there have been lots of new bonds purchased. So now the 10% quorum is actually at 469. So there's about 4,690 Casper participating in the entire supply distributed to the users, and 10% is pretty significant. So only 10% of quorum is that just kind of will make that proposal, active, but you will probably have to wait for 3 days. I don't think we'll be able to get about 50%. So therefore, I don't think proposal will be able to be accelerated. Now, the reason why that's the case is because the recent bond, has been at a 3-day duration. Okay, 3-day duration. As you can see, I purchased some, so 3 days as opposed to 1 day vesting. So I tried to experiment with this bond. So therefore, we have to wait for 3 days for it to be claimed. And therefore, for 3 days, we're not going to be able to claim significant quantities that have been purchased yesterday. And because of that, the governance will be very, very slow. And that's another reason to potentially move governance outside of the DAO and into the Ghost chain to prevent these things from happening. But listen, it's a good enough idea already. It's a good enough architecture already. Has its pitfalls, but it's good. And it definitely has issues when we are just growing the protocol, but once it reaches certain maturity level, then those issues with the governance, for example, will disappear. But in any case, so why did it drop? Why the backend drop? The backend dropped not because the backend dropped. Oxymoronic. The backend dropped because the supply significantly went up. So before the LP bond, the total supply of eGhost, let me tell you how much it was. It was about 2,000. So 2,000 eGhosts here. Now it's 6,500. So we tripled, almost definitely more than tripled, right? Within just essentially a day. And since we tripled, since the supply went up so much, it went up 3 to 4x, the backends obviously correspondingly dropped by a factor of 3 or 4 as well, because the reserves had not been audited yet. So this is totally normal behavior, and it's totally fine. The problem is the discounts at which LP bonds have been purchased have been very, very large. And since we don't have that many players yet, of course, everybody's waiting for the discounts to drop and drop and drop and drop. You see 40% discount, 50% discount, sometimes 80% discounts. Now, in reality, that's what the market is paying. However, in reality, on Olympus, what I remember, the discounts have been 5 to 10%, not more than that. And when discounts are 5 to 10% only and not 80%, not 70%, then of course you will have a very, very different situation when it comes down to the backing. So, again, the backing dropped because the supply significantly increased. The prices dropped because we had very few players who have been just selling eCasper instead of buying it. Although, I've been consulting yesterday somebody offline in DM, and that somebody actually initiated the buying pressure because that somebody did not have any Casper. They wanted to get LPs, so they obviously pushed the price higher. So we had both scenarios. I can just attest to the example that I personally witnessed. So that's what we see. Now the market cap though is 2 million. Okay. Now you go to the bond, for example. You see the treasury balance of 548. And that's exactly the price. That's exactly the metric that explains to us what the RFE is. So how this RFE is calculated? Well, simply, we take this value here, which is 550,000, and we divide this by the total supply of 6,500, and boom, you get your number right here. It's just that. Nothing else. So is this a real value? Well, no, it's not. The real value is higher than that. That's the good news, right? So we are 100% sure that the backend is 548,000. Now, this backend is comprised of 2 components. It's comprised of the Wrapped ETH proceeds, Wrapped ETH bond proceeds, and it's comprised of LP bond proceeds as well, right? So we have LP bond proceeds and WETH proceeds. Now, what is the rough dislocation of those two? Well, the Wrapped ETH bonds have been in large quantities before because we introduced many, many bonds before. I think we had 7 bonds, which are Wrapped ETH bonds. And obviously, Wrapped ETH is the largest component of the treasury right now. And that is corresponding to $559,000 today. Again, $559,000. Okay? Now, the LP component, only about 27,000. Now, I'm sharing the numbers with you. My numbers are off compared to the numbers that you see. Now, just kind of take it from like, kind of just, my numbers are off because my data is a little bit off because I need to consistently update it to make sure that it's matching whatever we see on the UI. But again, 560,000, that's DAI. That's Wrapped ETH, and 27,000 only is LPs. Now, if you're going to look though at the market values, not the risk-free adjusted values, but the market values. Like, what if you go on the market today and actually sell it? What's going to happen? Well, then you will have the same WETH component, which is about 559,000. But the LP component went up significant. So before the LP bond, it was just $4,000. The LP component before LP bond was just $4,000, actual market value, not risk-free adjusted value, which is discounted on purpose, but the market value, $4,000. Today, the market value is $500,000. So over the course of this LP bond, the LP component 100x'd in one day. So again, this treasury that you see, 548, it's risk-free adjusted. Now, when I say risk-free adjusted, what do I mean by that? It's divided by a factor of $1 price of square root of the dollar price of eCasper. So you see that eCasper price at $300 right now. That's $1 price. So essentially, roughly, it's not exact, math, but roughly, if you multiply this by the square root of that, you're going to get your answer. Now, you're going to get the answer for the market value that is really back in the treasury. Now, it's not exactly that because the WETH component shall not be multiplied. It should just be the LP component. So remember that 27,000? So 27,000 of LP multiplied by the square root of that, and you're going to get to your $500,000. So the actual treasury is not 500, it's closer to $1 million. And that's what's back in the treasury, and that's real. What do I mean by real? It means that, so we had a question on Whales Wednesdays, or rather kind of misalignment, right? Misunderstanding. So we have an LP bond proceeds and like overall bond proceeds. Bond proceeds go to the treasury. See, it says treasury balance. It goes to the treasury. We have another pool, which is on the DEX, and that pool is comprised of WETH and eCasper, and it has its own pool, has its own treasury. So we have a DEX treasury essentially. Then we have a ghostDAO treasury. Those treasuries not connected to each other. They're separate treasuries. So the treasury on the DEX, for example, could be seen here, as Jim Alfredo mentioned correctly. We went up from about 14,000 to 36,000. Now this is the treasury of the DEX. Okay, that's the liquidity of the DEX. Still very tiny, but it's growing. We almost 3x'd it in just one LP bond. So we're going to introduce more and more LP bonds, and we'll see how this TVL will grow. It's going to be an experiment for all of us to see. But that's one thing to take into consideration. Currently, DEX treasury is just 36. The misunderstanding was that, oh, this DEX treasury is what's back in this eGhost. That's totally fucking wrong. Like, complete misunderstanding how this protocol works. This TVL, it's only the TVL for the DEX pair. But the actual treasury is much bigger. The actual treasury, again, is $500,000. That's risk-free adjusted price divided by the square root, right? Now, the reason why it was divided by the square root is we still don't know why, but apparently when you are selling stuff, like since the treasury is comprised of eGhost LP, like LP pair and also the WETH, when you sell the LP pair, you may trigger some selling pressure. Now the selling pressure on the DEX will have the curve type of impact, and that's why, like, it seems like for that he's like, well, as a close approximation for that selling pressure, if ever happens, let's just take the square root of this price. Like, the square root of the selling price will essentially be mimicking the real impact on the DEX, right? So if the treasury decides to sell everything, not to keep it, but to sell everything, then we'll have $540,000 of backing. Okay? Now, if the treasury decides not to sell anything, then it's closer to, well, not closer, it's exceeding $1 million. Okay? It's like if Elon Musk's net worth is like, whatever, half a $1 trillion, the richest man alive. Okay, cool. If he decides to do nothing, go to the bank and say, hey, I would like to take a loan. The banks will probably give him a loan based on his $500 billion net worth. But if he's like, screw that loan, I just want to get cash. He goes ahead and starts selling everything. His stake in SpaceX, his Tesla stock, some other holdings he has, Twitter stock, everything, right? Then when he starts selling it, he's not going to get liquid $500 billion. No fucking way. Maybe he'll still be very rich. Maybe he'll get 10% of that, probably 50 billion. Still a lot of money. Cash, 50 billions of cash. That's a lot. So this is cash value if we sell everything, if the treasury decides to sell everything. That's like a very, very close approximation for what it will be, okay? So therefore, every single hold of eCasper, and by the, I forgot what the mathematical term for this, but transitory, whatever premise, therefore, of Casper holders and eCasper holders, if you are an eCasper holder and you hold it, and the treasury decides to do a one-time effect, a one-off event of liquidating the entire treasury, every single hold of eCasper will definitively get $83. That's true. That's 100% true. Now, the market value of that will be a lot higher than that. The market value will be $160. That's true. Right? So, again, please do not confuse the two. Please do not confuse the TVL of the DEX, which we need to grow by introducing more LP bonds, and TVL of the treasury belonging to the treasury of $500,000. Any questions here? I think we had a question before. Have you considered changing the label on the DAO from USD to Ghost Value based on ETH or METC or whatever coins on the DAO? Have you considered changing the labeling on the DAO from USD to Ghost Value based on ETH? I mean, it's not even that. I mean, one ETH, one eGhost is equal to one eGhost, so we can just have like eGhosts here and there. Like we introduced dollar terms on purpose because most users have no freaking clue what's happening. And us introducing dollar terms creates a number of issues that we're trying to fix right now. That definitely created the issue with the LP bond, because measuring everything in Wrapped ETH is so much easier. Everything's so much easier, but we are forced to do the DAO denomination to make sure that everybody understands what's happening, right? Because it's easier to manage your holdings in dollars as opposed to Wrapped ETH. Because then, kind of another problem with that is if you're going to denominate outside of the dollar, and let's assume you're going to denominate this from dollar to say Wrapped ETH, what's going to happen is this will be let me tell you how much will it be specifically. So the current price will be about 0.16 Wrapped ETH. On the mortar, it's going to be something else, like 0.2 METC. And then how do you know if there's arbitrage opportunities or not? Then you, as a user, need to denominate the price on Ethereum into dollars, the price on mortar into, well, whatever, on Ethereum Classic into dollars, and then you know if there's arbitrage or not. Okay? So we just do it for you, essentially. And that definitely creates lots of issues, but those issues have been slowly fixed. And yes, this definitely DAI backing was a lot easier to do than native coin backing. But the good thing is the backend is all stellar. It's just the user interface that we need to fix, which is a very good problem. Much easier problem to have. Would have been a lot more difficult and challenging if we had to change the backend. But we don't. It seems like we don't. All right, so that's what happened. So again, price dropped, backend dropped, but supply went up. And as Jim mentioned correctly, TVL also went up. Now, TVL is still tiny, 36,000. That's not a lot, but we only had one LP bond, and we didn't have that many users to play with it. Another thing that we need to take into consideration is the APY. So APY is 20,000, and I mentioned last week that when backing was $300, $400 per eCasper, this 20,000% APY would be sufficient to be sustainable for 3 months, even longer, in order to reach our backend to $100. So to drop from $400, $300 to $100, 20,000% APY is fine. But now we just broke below $100, so maybe we need to change the APY a little bit. Maybe we need to slow it down, or we just need to be okay with dropping the backend even more down to $50. Is that a problem? Not a problem at all. Like, it's just a cosmetic thing here. Like, it's really not a problem. We can keep maintaining the 20%, 20,000%. So we just need to give a little bit of thought as a community what we want to do with this. But yeah, the backend dropped a lot because the supply went up. That's why. It's going to be curious to see what's going to happen with the next LP bond. The next LP bond will take some time. Whenever introduced, it will take us all 3 days to wait, maybe longer, because again, most of the Casper is stuck in the vesting schedule currently, which is 3 days as opposed to 1 day. So lots of the real life issues struck us, but it is what it is. Okay, it is what it is. The best source for the proposals is on the forum. It's purposefully not integrated into Whales. It's purposely moved into the forum. Why? The governance cannot be the governance cannot be limited to Whales, because Whales has a pretty significant barrier to entry. Like, you need to have a JML, therefore you have to have some mainnet funds, you have to claim a JML, and that's pretty much the only barrier. Other barriers are mostly for those users who never used Telegram before. I've been onboarding like a bunch of people, and like, I just know the difference. Like, if a person is familiar with Telegram, the onboarding takes less than a minute. If a person is not familiar with Telegram, it takes like a long time, very long, maybe up to many weeks. So now the forum does not have that much barrier to entry. You just need to, first of all, you can view it without signing up or logging in. So you can view everything here. So it's a public forum, publicly available. Now, if you want to contribute, you need to then log in, right? Or, well, therefore sign up. Now, sign up is very easy, very, very UX friendly, just an email. Now, it's not that the sign up for the forum is more UX friendly than Telegram. It's more like we as users, as global users, internet users, are way more familiar with signing up to the forums now. Why? Because we sign up to a bunch of internet protocols. Now, if we had a task of signing up to a forum 20 years ago, it would be similarly painful experience, because we didn't know that, oh, we have to check our email for a fucking code somewhere, like check the spam folders and all this other stuff. Like, we're just not familiar with, like, now we are familiar with these mechanics, but 20 years ago we wouldn't been. So, but now, like, given the fact that humanity all learned how to use emails, it's much easier to sign up to this forum. And the reason why the governance should be here is because that's a governance. Like, that's not a team owned anything. It's a community-owned domain, and therefore it's a lot more, like, it's a lot less biased to anything, right? So there's definitely going to be some moderation, and the team will definitely be helping. I personally will be helping moderate this thing. So definitely going to be some rules. So therefore, you may argue that, like, I'm equally biased, but I don't, like, the team does not control this. The team does not control the development of Ghost Forum, and the team does not control the domain name or the hosting servers. So, and that's a good thing. And the governance shall be here because it's accessible to everybody. Now, the governance will be here for both ghostDAO and GhostChain. As far as all the other communication, we will see. Although we have some interesting topics. So Stark Protocol published his question yesterday or a couple of days ago about questions with with some backend stuff or restoring a node. So technical questions shall probably be posted onto the forum, because that way we are able to create a knowledge base. Okay, let me just see how many people are watching us. Just give me 1 second. If you guys could tell me how many people are watching us right now, I would appreciate it. Let me just check on my end if I'm able to. If my computer is not going to be giving me issues again with being slowed down. So 1 second. Okay, live, and I just want to see. I'm just curious now. Okay. Okay, it's taking time to open, obviously. All right, so, but in any case, please refer to the forum. So register on the forum. The governance will be posted on the forum. with all the necessary details, right? So you have details here which have been previously published in Wales, but now they're published here for the details. Although those details are again publicly available when you go to the governance page itself, right? Remember I shared that with you, so you can see all those metrics. But on the forum, those metrics have been denominated in easier to understand measures such as dollars, right? Dollar terms. Okay, 4 people watching us. Yeah, thank you. 4 people. Not a lot. Well, and you can see the participation. Like, listen, participation on the DAO is equal to this. And Mr. Okay, thank you as well. Yeah. So, and listen, like, if we have 4 users, 5 users, 10 users, 21 holders, I understand that's testnet, and 20,000% on the mainnet will be very, very like gimmicky from marketing perspective. But I think now, better than ever, you guys will understand. Those who are watching us now, those who are watching us later, you guys will understand the importance of bringing community members, right? Because the community has to run the nodes as validators, deal with this RPC stuff, right? The community also needs to be holders of Casper, to get to the stake of 6.9 Casper, right? But also to provide liquidity for bridgers. So if like we have great tech. This week, I wrote 20 plus pages. And those are final pages of formulas. At some point in time, I may even demonstrate them. But like those are corrected pages of formulas. So I probably wrote about 40 pages, maybe 50 pages of formulas just like this last week with like a bunch of scrape paper. Those are final formulas for the ratios that I was not able to crack last year, but I was able to crack finally this week. And I'm very, very impressed with what we are building. Like we're building a super wholesome structure, comprised of so many elegant moving parts, starting from ghostDAO, which serves as a source of liquidity for the bridge, and also kind of like, well, essentially that's it, right? Like liquidity of the bridge, essentially, right? And then finishing with the ghost chain itself, how elegantly kind of plays out with with validators maintaining it. Then we can introduce the ghost chain governance, which hopefully will be as elegant as as everything we've done so far, thanks to the team. Also thanks to the input from Wales and council members. And then bridge out. And like we have a couple of things left. Most is built. I would say we are like from perspective of finality, I would say we are 70% finalized, like from like finalized. Again, we could be, as we mentioned before, we can launch everything now, but it's not necessarily going to be the most elegant solutions, right? But as far as elegancy, like maybe 70% complete, 60-70%. And we'll build this like amazing, wholesome country, like wholesome economic, like parallel economic world that is self-sustainable. But the only way how that will operate properly is if it has enough user adoption. And as I mentioned before, and I'm going to keep mentioning this again and again and again, learning all of this within a week is just impossible. For example, while developing the formulas and figure out the formulas for LP bonds, how LP bonds impact the ratios versus how Wrapped ETH bonds impact the ratios, the risk-free value ratio to the market cap. Currently, a ratio is 3.5, right? Like closer to 4, right? So 300 divided by 82. So this ratio needs to be expanded. The healthy ratio should be within 5 to 10. So we're not even in the healthy range. Like we are, it's not that we're in the healthy range. We are in a very healthy range right now. So anything below 5 is super healthy. 5 to 10 is healthy. Above 10 may be risky. So we are like very de-risked. We are super deleveraged right now, and we should be definitely taking more risk for the protocol. But while developing these formulas, I forgot a bunch of, pillars that these formulas were based on. And these formulas are, the formulas that we've been developing this week have been very much based on the formulas that published on the blog already. And I forgot what these blog articles like say. So I was reviewing the blog articles and I'm like, oh, oh, it's like, gosh, like this is so cool. Like all these formulas on the block, extremely useful, very, very useful. However, like I forgot what they are. What I'm trying to say is like, if the creator of formulas forgot what these formulas have been, and these formulas have been published just 6 months ago, and I completely forgot what they are, and then I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like, then I have been using these formulas, and these formulas came super handy for the upcoming ratio formulas. You can imagine what a person who has no idea what is his or her level of understanding of the protocol. So it just takes time. And it's not going to take us, or you guys, or anybody a week, unless they are Einstein level of genius. I don't think Einstein will understand this either. Because Einstein said to himself, like, said to everybody, like, the most difficult thing in this world is the tax code, IRS tax code in the US. So this central bank situation, it's not as difficult. It's just there's so many moving parts, and all of them need to be taken into consideration. And if you want to bring some new members, doesn't necessarily mean new council members, just new members to learn about this. You should do this now because it just takes time to learn. Because we want everybody who joins ghostDAO to actually try to increase their net worth as opposed to lose their net worth when they join. Okay, so that's why it's important for you guys to join. First of all, to understand this yourselves, and also to bring new users. So the question is, will Bridge Out launch in both Sepool and Mortar simultaneously? Probably not. It will be the Bridge Out will be launched. Well, actually, you're right. It probably is going to be launched simultaneously because it's coming out of the Ghost chain. Yeah, probably it's going to be launched simultaneously because that is just an issue within the Ghost chain. Yeah, but we need to test it individually anyways before we can scale it to other chains. That's a good question as well. We had some good questions from Jamal Freedom. We had some good questions from Stark. So these questions are very good. Keep them coming in Wales or on the forum to create the knowledge base. Okay. So another thing that I really would like to kind of emphasize. So while this may sound, the LP bond may sound like a failure, because again, the backing dropped and the Casper price dropped. In reality, I wouldn't say so. It's a relative failure because we didn't have that many users and the discount was large. However, just to kind of mention it one more time, while the back-in from WETH bonds is 1-for-1, the back-in from LP bonds is actually discounted significantly. And because as LP bonds take a larger portion of the back-in is not necessarily going to be increasing the RFE value here. It's not necessarily going to be increasing as much. But the market value of this back-in is going to be 1-for-1 increasing like significantly. Again, the difference is going to be the square root of this price. So the square root of this price right now is about 17. So it's a factor of 17 that this value will be discounted by. Like, just to put this in perspective, let's assume the backend is fully comprised of LP and nothing else. And let's assume this backend says $100. While the RFE is $100, the real market value is going to be $1,700, 17 times that, if the price is $300. And that's like an important clarification. Again, the reason why it's discounted is Zeus discounted with Olympus. He had his reasons, and we're just keeping this as legacy. There's probably a reason for that. Okay, and I think I know the reason. I mentioned that to you guys, but I'm not 100% sold on that reason. I think he was just trying to be careful. That's all, and I like that personally. So, what though, like, significantly increased? Like, what became better after, like, because of LPs? First of all, clearly the TVL. So TVL went up from 14,000 to whatever. Okay, this number will take some time to 36. What else though? The POL also increased. Protocol-owned liquidity. So the protocol-owned liquidity, let me open my Excel spreadsheet. Before that LP bond, before this one LP bond, was just, 1 second, it was just 1.5%. That's it, 1.5%. The LP share today, after just one LP bond, only one, is 78%. So this one LP bond was able to capture more than 70%, more than even 75% of the entire LP share within just one day. Now the treasury will be generating DEX fees as well. So 78% of every single DEX fee that triggers through the DEX goes back to the treasury now, which is absolutely insane. So we could say that, yeah, like we took a hit. We took a hit everywhere. We took a hit on the price because we don't have that many users. We definitely took a hit on the back end because, again, we don't have that many users, and the discount with which the users have been buying egos has been like significant. And that's why it was easier to buy, it was easier to buy a lot more, and therefore it was easier to then dilute the back end. But Zeus said it correctly on one of the podcasts. We should do anything. We should pay up pretty much any price. The protocol should be paying pretty much any price in order to switch from renting liquidity to owning liquidity. To paraphrase this, 78% of the liquidity is owned by the protocol. So now dropping the price is going to be a lot more difficult because 78% of that is not going to be dropped. So now the users, well, as of today, the users only control 22% of the liquidity. And if they can drop the 22%, they can sell. But the 78% will be keeping that selling pressure from like being, going berserk. If that makes sense, right? So of course, as we expand on the LP bonds, some users may be buying LP bonds and diluting that 78%. But if LP bonds go successfully, then the treasury will actually be capturing more and more, higher and higher portion of that 78%, which is quite significant. Okay, so that's very important. So yes, we took a hit, but the protocol got the liquidity. So now as the TVL of the DEX is going to be increasing slowly but surely with the LP bonds, and the LP share of that TVL is going to be increasing as well, owned by the protocol, the selling pressure is going to be a lot more difficult to orchestrate by the users. So we are significantly successfully fighting that. So I would say that LP bond has been successful, very successful, given the circumstances where we are at. And the main circumstances, we don't have that many users who are playing with this. Now, let me just maybe end with, like, what do I mean by lots of users? How does that impact anything? So my personal experience, and maybe you guys will share the same experience. And if you don't have that experience, get some Wrapped ETH and try to bond something the next time the bond is available. When there are not that many buyers on the bond, I feel very confident. I'm like, oh, I can wait for more discount, for a high discount. Discount is, I don't know, let's assume 20%. Okay, cool. I don't see any buyers. I can wait for 25% discount. Why not, right? But the second that I see somebody buying the bond, and I see that because the bond price then kind of jumps up, I'm like, oh, shoot, like I actually need to get something in. I actually need to be buying something. I cannot just be waiting passively for the discount to increase, because somebody will be buying ahead of me. And that feeling accelerates significantly, I would actually say significantly on the emotional level, when I see more buys, when I see the price bumps not dropping, but actually like kind of persisting. Now, that only took place, let's assume like the example was like, oh, okay, so the price discount is 20%, then it increases to 25%, somebody bumps it up to 20%. I'm like, okay, so I'm waiting for a discount of 30%, for example. So the price discount goes down to, bond discount goes down to 24, or goes up to 25% again, and then it goes back up to 20. And then it repeats multiple times. And like I'm expressing a specific example that I've been part of. So somebody was buying between 20 and 25% and bumping it back to 20, and then, but my target was 30%. So at that point in time, I also started buying at 25%. I increased my target. That is the effect of the Dutch auction. We don't experience that. Why? Because we don't have that many users. But if you have like 20 users, 100 users buying that bond, there's no freaking way that the discount would have been like 80%. It would have been probably 5 to 10. That's a very important clarification for you guys to notice. So let me respond to some last questions and be done with this. But overall, please keep playing with the protocol. It's magnificent, and how it's integrated into the Ghost chain is absolutely magical. I don't see anything in the Web3 space similar to this. It's a very, very it's a very magnificent task that we undertook, It's slowly being finalized, and I'm very, very happy with how it's been finalized. Again, it's magnificent. I would not I just cannot even imagine them building such a such a detailed and magnificent parallel economy, essentially digital, like fully sustainable. But we need more users, gentlemen. We need you guys to play with it. So, question: since the value of the protocol owning of the bulk of the liquidity is elemental for protocol health, I'd say the bond was super successful. Oh, absolutely, that's the comment. Absolutely, 100%. Like, we were able to increase our POL from 1.5% to 78 within just one bond. That's success. Absolutely successful. So what's coming is new governance proposals are coming very soon. We need to feed the treasury more and more. Maybe last point, while, again, we can say whatever we want about the backing went up still 85x. So, sorry, actually, no. The initial backing was $3. So now the backing is 84. So the backing went up, what, 28 times? Now the initial supply was 100. Yes? The new supply is 6,500. So the supply went up 65x. It all happened within just a couple of weeks. So again, 65x, the supply went up. And the back end went up only by 28. So maybe that's a problem, right? So maybe we have to kind of start fixing this problem. However, what's important is the treasury balance altogether. The treasury balance was $300, and it went up 120x. Even with this massive dilution from the LP. LP really impacted it negatively. But let me just calculate it one more time on the calculator really quickly. So we have 555,000 free value. It used to be 300. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I was wrong. The backend went up 1,800 times. 1,800 freaking times. Okay? So it means that the treasury growth is still larger than anything we have. So we've been diluted by massive discounts. We've been diluted by APY of 20,000%, which is absolutely real. And we're still doing well as a DAO. And that's insane. That's so magical. Whoever starts understanding this protocol will start understanding how magnificent it is. ghostDAO by itself. But when mixed with the Ghost chain, and the reason why that mix is important is because Ghost chain will be sucking lots of selling pressure from the ghostDAO into itself, thus becoming even healthier for the protocol. You guys will really start appreciating this. All right, thank you so much. Please be more active on the forum. Definitely ask questions in Wales or on the forum. See you guys next week. Have a good one. Bye.